Welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in a couple minutes. We're just letting everyone into the conference or the webinar right now. Have you had a chance to get outside, Melanie?
It's really nice right now.
Beautiful.
I live down in Pacific Beach, and it's the beach just got, well, the beach is not open, but the ocean is open.
That's great.
Actually, the beach is open for walking and running and whatnot, but you can't lay on the beach and gather and whatnot. So
I know we were thinking about driving down there and checking it out.
it's really nice.
Which beach did you go to?
Pacific Beach.
Oh, nice.
And last night we went to La Jolla to watch the bioluminescence out in the waves. That was really cool.
That was nice. Is that like at 10 p.m.?
We were out at about 9:30.
Yeah. One of these days. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the webinar, Insurance Coverage Challenges for COVID-19 Claims, presented by the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin today's webinar, we have a few Zoom reminders. All attendees have been muted. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat box or the Q&A box. They are both located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You will only be able to see the presenter and her presentation. We can't see or hear you. You will receive a follow-up email with a video copy of this presentation, along with any links and documents discussed. This will include the speaker's contact information. I would now like to introduce our presenter. Melanie McDonald is an attorney at Sachs, Dornberger and Vita, PC, a national insurance coverage law firm dedicated exclusively to policyholder representation and advocacy. The firm is headquartered in Connecticut and has 4 total offices nationwide, with 1 located here in Temecula. Melanie brings a wealth of experience to the firm, having represented policyholders on insurance recovery matters for over 30 years. She is a skilled litigator and has extensive experience with commercial litigation in both state and federal courts. Melanie also gained insurance experience working for 8 years as a licensed insurance broker, placing directors and officers liability, commercial crime, fiduciary liability, and employment practices liability policies, and advising clients on their claims. Please welcome Melanie McDonald.
Thank you, Brooke. And I want to thank the Chamber for having our firm here for this presentation. I hope there's someone out there watching. It may or may not be a very interesting subject to you. We have a bunch of insurance nerds here at our firm who like insurance coverage work. So I'm going to go through this PowerPoint slideshow that I have, and we're going to keep some time at the end in case you have some questions. Brooke's going to be monitoring that for me so I don't get distracted by the chat going on. As Brooke mentioned, our firm, SDV, is here in Temecula, headquartered in Connecticut, and we have a nationwide practice. Insurance is, it varies by state, and there are concepts of insurance law that are the same from state to state. So it is very much a national practice that we have. And we are very happy to be here in Temecula. So here is a slide on the overview of the current local situation. You've been under a rock if you're not aware of our current local situation, but wanted to go through. We are obviously here in California under a stay-at-home order since March 19th. Before March 19th, there were a few countywide orders, especially up in the Bay Area. And then Governor Newsom put us under a statewide order. Riverside County has a compliance request of its own. So despite the statewide mandate, counties are still having their own local orders. And the Riverside County compliance requests that we wear facial coverings while in public. We avoid gatherings of any kind outside of those in the same residence. And we stay at home unless we're involved in the critical infrastructure sectors. So just going through the kind of laying the groundwork for where we all are. These are the critical infrastructure sectors. There's 16 of them. This is a national Homeland Security graphic, but the states have used these federal, the infrastructure set by the federal government for guidance on what can be considered essential. And this is the same 16 essential infrastructure workers that the state of California has declared as essential. And these are the people out working right now while the rest of us manage to work from home. So I'm going to talk about insurance coverage today. I want to go through some basics of insurance coverage and hopefully not make this too simple or too complex either. Just Goldilocks is what I'm shooting for here. So there are two big, on the big picture standpoint, there are two types of insurance coverage. You have first-party insurance and you have third-party insurance. And sometimes you have mixed first and third-party insurance. So a first-party insurance policy is one that you buy to protect yourself from your own losses. Homeowners insurance is a first-party type of insurance. In the commercial standpoint, commercial property insurance is first-party insurance. If you have a loss, you file under that insurance policy with your insurance company to recoup your loss. Medical and health insurance are first-party insurance. Third-party insurance, on the other hand, is insurance that protects you in case a third party sues you. So it's sometimes called liability insurance. It's called litigation insurance. Third-party insurance almost always is going to have a duty to defend you against some kind of claim or lawsuit brought against you. Some examples of third-party insurance that might provide coverage to you for COVID-related lawsuits would be commercial general liability, CGL. There are lots of types of professional liability insurance. As Brooke mentioned, I was an insurance broker for many years in Texas, which is where I'm from. You're going to hear y'all from me before the presentation is over. Professional liability insurance, doctors, lawyers, directors and officers, architects, engineers, those kind of things. Pollution liability insurance. All of these are third-party insurance. Again, they protect you if someone sues you for allegedly causing them harm. And then mixed first and third-party insurance. So cyber policies have aspects of both first-party insurance and third-party insurance, and pollution policies sometimes have aspects of both. So a first-party insurance policy is one that insures the policyholder or the insured for his, her, or the company's own losses. So here's an example. A business files a claim under its property policy for business interruption. Now I'm going to talk about business interruption in a little bit. Business interruption is a big item of COVID losses right now, and you've probably read some articles on the subject of business interruption insurance. I'll get to that in a minute. Again, third-party insurance is one that defends and indemnifies the policyholder for claims by third parties. Here's an example, a real-life example. A former passenger on a cruise ship sued the cruise line, alleging that she caught COVID-19 while on board, alleging that the ship and the cruise line did not act quickly enough to safeguard the passengers once they knew they had infected passengers on board. So one of the big hurdles for getting COVID-19 coverage under a first-party property insurance, so that property insurance coverage or a business owner's insurance is where you might be looking for some coverage for your own losses, your own business income loss, etc. One of the big questions is whether there is direct physical loss of or damage to property. So backing up a little bit, property insurance policies are going to be written as either named peril, specified named peril policies, or they're going to be written as all risk policies. Named peril policies, it's a mouthful, tongue twister, are 16 specified named perils such as windstorm or hail, explosion, riots, smoke, vandalism, theft. So that's a named perils policy. On the other hand, there's also a policy called an all risk policy, and an all risk policy covers direct physical loss of or damage to property from any cause unless it's excluded. And it's this direct physical loss of or damage to property aspect that gets you into the coverage in the first place. So the issue with COVID-19 is your property shut down because you have COVID-19 physically at your premises. Say you're a nursing home and you have sick nursing home residents there. The CDC notes that COVID-19 can linger on hard surfaces for many days. Is your property therefore affected by the COVID? Does it have direct physical loss of or damage to the property? This is going to be a big, excuse me, it's going to be a big battle of the experts for policyholders who are going to try to prove that they have direct physical loss, while the insurance companies are going to claim that the property is not damaged. It's just shut down because the governor shut it down. U.S. courts are split when it comes to similar scenarios in the past. Odors, fumes, smoke, is this direct physical loss to get you into your property coverage in the first place? If you get past your direct physical loss requirement, the next possible hurdle to coverage is a virus exclusion. If it's on your policy, not all policies have virus exclusions. This is an example of a commercial property virus exclusion. This one is actually not as onerous as others are. It says we will not pay for loss or damage caused by or resulting from any virus, bacterium, or other microorganism that induces or is capable of inducing physical distress, illness, or disease. And then it actually has an exception to the exclusion there. Some virus exclusions are much more onerous than this one, and they say, in essence, that the insurance company is not going to pay if virus is a cause of your loss, even if you have some other cause of loss, such as fire or water damage, etc. So, two things that you need to look for is, do I have a direct physical loss? And do I have a virus exclusion on my policy? This is a property policy, but virus exclusions can be on any of your commercial policies. So as mentioned, what a lot of people are worried about is their lost business income. It's sometimes called loss of profits. It's called business interruption. It's called business income. This is often part of a commercial property policy. Sometimes companies buy just business interruption type of coverage. And again, we have to look at whether the policy is triggered in the first place. Some of these policies are going to require that you have the direct physical loss in order to get to your business interruption. So business interruption, for example, you're shut down. You're a restaurant, you're shut down. You're losing money every day because you're shut down, and you have a property policy and it has business interruption coverage. Can you recover? It depends. It depends on the words of the policy. So I meant to say this earlier. Insurance policies are contracts, and whether you have coverage is dependent on the words in your particular insurance contract. Many are standardized, but then you might have a standard policy with 15 endorsements behind it that change the language of the policy. The virus exclusion might be in the standard policy, or it might be out there in an endorsement to your policy, or you might not have one at all. Again, it all comes down to the words of the contract. Another concept that I want to bring up about insurance coverage is that the insurance policy is a contract, but it's written primarily by one party, and that's the insurance company. So if there's an ambiguity in the policy, I'm going to explain that in a minute, then we get to construe the policy in the insured's favor and against the insurance company. And the ambiguity is when you read the policy and you say, wow, it could mean this, or just as easily it could mean this. And this interpretation over here is the one that gives me coverage, and this one over here excludes coverage. So that's an ambiguity. So there are various laws and case law that says that if a policy is ambiguous, we get to construe it against the insurance company. So if you ask an insurance attorney, do I have coverage? It's going to be, it depends. Let me look at your policy. Let's look at the words of the policy. Let's look at the situation of your factual situation of your loss, and let's make the best argument possible that you have coverage based on your situation. So business interruption, you may or may not have it on your policy, and you may or may not have coverage depending on whether you have a physical loss and whether that's required. So another type of loss of profits coverage is contingent business interruption. So this is, so we're all shut down. Maybe California opens up, but your supplies are coming from New York, and New York is still in shutdown, and you can't get the supplies that you need, or they're coming from China or Italy. This is a global issue. I read this morning that 1/3 of the world is under some kind of shutdown order right now, and 85% of the United States is affected by a shutdown order. So it may be that you're ready to go, you're ready to operate, but you can't get your supplies, you can't get what you need for your business because your supplier or your customer is still shut down. So that type of insurance is called contingent business interruption coverage. Again, you most often find it in a commercial property or commercial business owner's policy. The next possible loss of profits coverage is government action, such as a quarantine order, a stay-at-home order. And this is going to be under the civil authority coverage of the policy. And I've got a separate slide on that one. Again, it may or may not require a direct physical loss. Let me tell you how civil authority coverage comes up often. The business next door to you has a fire, and the fire marshal puts a big caution tape around your next door neighbor, but also your property too. So now you can't access your own property because a civil authority has blocked off access to your property. That's when civil authority coverage traditionally comes up. But again, coverage attorneys are looking, and people with business losses are looking for coverage in their policies. as best they can. And these are some of the ways that they're looking for coverage. Civil authority is one of them. Lack of ingress or egress. You physically cannot get to your property because of damage to another person's property, similar to the civil authority situation. So here's the civil authority coverage. It may or may not require direct physical loss to property in order to provide coverage. May apply when the government acts prohibit access to property of suppliers, providers, or vendors. Some policies are going to require a prohibition of access, such as a government mandate, to trigger the coverage. And they may be limited to a certain time frame. Most of these, I'm going to go back, most of these loss of profits coverage are not indefinite. They're also called time element coverage. I don't know why we have to have 8 different terms for the same things, but you might find this referred to as time element coverage. You might have a waiting period and then you have coverage for a week or 30 days or 60 days. All depends on the wording of your policy. So this is a case study of this. So there have been various lawsuits already filed by policyholders seeking coverage under their policies for COVID-19 losses. And sometimes this comes up as what we insurance nerd lawyers call, we use a process called a declaratory judgment. We seek a declaration from the court that, hey, our policy provides coverage and the insurance company has to pay. So this is the French Laundry Napa Valley restaurant had to close down due to the Napa County stay-at-home order, which predated just by a few days the statewide order. The restaurant, I've not been there yet. I hear it's very she-she. Restaurants can stay open for takeout and to go, et cetera, but I don't think that's really what French Laundry is about. So they shut down completely. Then they made a claim against their insurance company, the Hartford, for loss of income due to the shutdown. Their all-risk property policy covers all risk unless clearly and specifically excluded. So that's what I was saying earlier. You might have a specified risk policy or you might have an all-risk policy. They pled in their complaint that they have an all-risk policy. They also stated in their complaint, it filed up in Napa County, I think, that the policy provides explicit express virus coverage. But nevertheless, the Hartford is denying coverage. And they're most likely denying coverage because of the direct physical loss of or damage to property. The Hartford is saying, you shut down because of Napa County stay-at-home order. You didn't shut down because you had a direct physical loss of or damage to your property caused by the COVID virus. So that's one we will be watching. There are many others. The several restaurants and other businesses too. This is, I don't know if this slide is in your slides. I don't believe it is, but I wanted to say something about a provision that might be on your property policy and just make a note of this. And if I can get this slide into the slides that go out to you, I will. But I've been looking at a lot of insurance policies of late. Our firm has fortunately stayed busy throughout this pandemic, and we are looking at policies to see whether there's coverage or not, or what are the arguments for coverage. Along the way, I realized that a lot of, I think every property policy has some kind of provision talking about vacancy or unoccupancy. And the reasoning is, if you've got a vacant building, that building is more prone to theft, vandalism, etc. So the policy says that if you are vacant or unoccupied, for 60 days before loss occurs, there is no coverage if the loss is caused by vandalism, sprinkler leakage, unless the insured protected the system against freezing, building glass breakage, water damage, theft, or attempted theft. For all other types of losses, the insurer is going to reduce the insured's recovery under the policy by 15% if the vacancy provision applies. So we've been on shutdown since March 19th. I don't know if your buildings, and the definition of vacant is going to be in your policy. You're going to find this provision under either loss conditions or limitations, maybe exclusions. It's going to be in your policy, and it's going to define what vacant means. And it's a formula. And whether you own the building or you're a tenant or you're the owner of the building and you have tenants, it's going to explain what does vacant mean. And it's a formula. And I think it's like 31%, but don't quote me. But there is a provision. And if we say if you have absolutely no operations going on at your commercial building for 60 days, so that's May 19th, we're going to run up against these provisions. I've talked to a national insurance broker about this to see, is it possible to get a waiver of these provisions? And he's saying no. And I'm going to get to a slide in a minute. The California Insurance Commissioner, what's his name? Ricardo Lara, has been very consumer protective of California insureds. And he's put out a bunch of notices and orders. So maybe there will be something to prevent insurance companies from acting on these 60-day provisions, but I did want to bring it to your attention that there is a provision, most likely in your property policy, talking about vacancy or unoccupancy. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a minute because this is what I was just referring to. The California Insurance Department, Commissioner Ricardo Lara, has issued quite a number of notices and orders. Here's a timeline of some of them. I noted that we're missing one. On April 9th, there was a notice. It was guidance to insurers regarding insurance coverage for delivery drivers for California essential businesses. And the notice, I have them all printed here, but the notice notes that you've got delivery drivers out there who may not have personal auto policies are probably going to exclude commercial use of your vehicle. And now you have delivery drivers out there making deliveries in their personal vehicles without express coverage. And so on April 9th, and there's a link later in the presentation, on April 9th, Commissioner Lara put out a directive or guidance requesting that insurers extend coverage, or they don't rely on an exclusion in a personal auto policy that would affect these drivers who are out there doing essential work using their personal vehicles. It's much more complicated than that, but I just want to bring that to your attention. So here are 1, 2, 3, 7, I just spoke of an 8th, orders, notices that have come out from Commissioner Lara. On the 18th of March, the day before our lockdown, he asked insurance companies to provide policyholders with at least a 60-day grace period to pay policy premiums. Similarly, I know there was one where, premium refunds. That's April 13th. There's an order requiring that California insurance companies issue partial refunds And the list of policies that are affected by that are private passenger automobile insurance, commercial automobile insurance, workers' comp insurance, commercial multiple peril insurance, commercial liability insurance, medical malpractice insurance, and any other line of coverage where the measures of risk have become substantially overstated as a result of the pandemic. So the premise behind this order is that nobody's driving cars right now. The auto accident rates are down, workers' comp injuries are down, all sorts of losses are down right now. Obviously business interruption losses are up, but other losses are down, and we should all be getting some relief from our insurance premiums because of that. There's also one on April 3rd here that policyholder deadlines for making claims are extended until after the state of emergency ends. So this one says that all licensees are hereby notified that they should not attempt to enforce policy or statutory deadlines on policyholders until 90 days after the statewide state of emergency or other state of emergency that impacts the specific policyholder, until the end of that state of emergency. This includes things like filing a sworn proof of loss, having your property inspected for loss, etc. So a lot of good work going on from Commissioner Lara to help us. Okay, so workers' compensation is obviously a type of insurance. Generally speaking, a worker has the burden of proving that his sickness was caused by employment. So for COVID-19, that might be a difficult proof to make unless the worker is, for example, a healthcare provider. Because the workers' comp carrier, the employer might say, you got COVID-19, but you got it from your sister or your wife or whatever. You didn't get it from the workplace. So there is a, back to this other slide, there is a workers' comp order also on April 6th. Commissioner Lara put out a bulletin just reminding everyone that workers affected by COVID-19 from their job are eligible for workers' comp regardless of immigration status. So this is nothing new. It's just a reminder that COVID-19 is a compensable injury if caused in the workplace, and that workers are eligible for workers' comp regardless of their immigration or citizenship status. Where was I? So here's a slide just talking about what benefits are available if the worker proves exposure took place in the workplace. Benefits for those unable to work will begin when the doctor states the worker cannot work for more than 3 days or the worker is hospitalized. The worker may be entitled to benefits for up to 104 weeks of temporary disability. So workers get wages, they get their health expenses paid, etc. There's a link here in the presentation that takes you to the California Workers' Comp website with more information if you are needing that information. If your workers are not provided paid sick leave or paid leave of any time, they may be eligible under the California Family Rights Act and Family Medical Leave Act for protected leave. Workers' comp is not my forte, but I did want to bring it up. It is a type of insurance that is being affected by the virus. So again, policies have virus exclusions. Not all of them do. And I want to make another point here. Most insurance policies that you have for your business or personal are called an occurrence policy. They cover, say you have an auto accident today and you get sued a year from now. The policy that's in effect today is the one that's going to respond because the occurrence happened today. That's an occurrence-based insurance policy. That's how most of your policies are going to be. There's another type of insurance that's called a claims-made policy or a claims-made and reported policy. These are your professional liability policies. Those are often that way. Some pollution liability policies are that way. Some cyber policies are that way. What that means is you did something 2 years ago, your directors and officers did something 2 years ago, and they get sued today. The directors and officers liability policy that's going to respond, is the one that's in effect today. Why is this important? This distinction between occurrence and claims made. A lot of claims made policies that we've looked at right now, directors and officers, fiduciary liability, employment practices liability, they don't currently have virus exclusions on them. These policies allow you to, your policies coming up for renewal. You have an idea that something's gone down and you might get sued. There's been some, it's not yet maybe a claim, or maybe it is. These policies often have very broad definition of claim. It's much broader than just a lawsuit. You might get a written demand letter from an attorney saying, I represent this person and you did him wrong and you have to pay or we're going to sue you. That's a demand letter, and under most claims made policies, that's going to trigger coverage under the policy. But say it's not quite a claim yet, but it's a circumstance that might become a claim, and you've got a policy right now that does not have a virus exclusion, but it's up for renewal on June 30th. Look at those policies. Look at whether you have any situations like that, and can you put your insurance company on notice now? Because what's going to happen on renewal, every policy is probably going to have a virus exclusion. If it doesn't have one now, it's going to have one on renewal. So you can get that claim in now under your current policy. If you've got the claim or you've got the circumstance that could give rise to a claim, then you can put your insurance company on notice now under the current policy that has no virus exclusion. So this slide talks about potential legislative response. So a lot of states are looking at the issue of whether they're going to just say, insurance industry, we don't care that you want there to be a physical loss or damage to property to trigger coverage. We don't care that you have a virus exclusion. We want you to pay these business interruption, these extra expense, these civil authority, these ingress and egress. We want you to pay those lost business, lost profits claims regardless. How are they how is that happening? A lot of states are looking at legislation to require that. South Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Louisiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and New Jersey all have legislation that they're considering that would require businesses to cover COVID business interruption. The ones that are in bold would provide coverage regardless of a virus exclusion. So the bigger group is going to say, I don't care that you have this physical loss. We're going to say that COVID-19 is a physical damage or loss to property, and therefore the insured, the policyholder, gets into these business loss coverages. These others are going to go even further and say, I don't care that you put a virus exclusion on your policy. We're not going to enforce it. Okay, so what is California doing? As I showed you, the insurance commissioner has put out a lot of notices and whatnot. there are several things that are going on in California. So the March 26th, Commissioner Lara put out a bulletin requesting data from insurance carriers who do business in the state of California, asking them to provide information. The deadline was April 9th, that they had to provide information regarding how much business interruption, how much contingent business interruption, how much supply chain, et cetera, type of insurance they write in the state of California. The notice, the data request also asked for information about the size of the company that was insured. Is it a small business, a medium business, a large business? It was defined by number of employees. And so the insurance commissioner has gathered this information and presumably to decide, are we going to do something from a regulatory basis to force these insurance companies to pay, or are we, or maybe pass it on to the California legislature to force them to pay. Meanwhile, Senate Bill 89 passed, I believe the date was on March 17. It passed in one day, I believe. Both sides of the aisle got together and passed this legislation, appropriated $500 million from the general fund to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. I'm not exactly sure about this bullet that's here that says that if the insurance carriers elect to provide coverage, carrier may be reimbursed from this fund. Further analysis of that is needed. But the legislature has responded by appropriating this money that is for healthcare, it's for cleaning businesses, it's for small businesses. There's a link in the presentation, so you can go directly to that legislation. And you can also Google it up and see what all is covered there. Small business loans, I think, may be covered. And then there's this other bill down here about unemployment benefits. So California thus far has not done what these other states have done and said, we're going to force you, insurance company, to cover. But there was a timeline slide. There are various things that the insurance commissioner is doing, like making them refund premiums, making them delay, not deny coverage, give you additional time to make your claim, etc. There may be a federal response. We don't know yet. After 9/11, there was a federal response. FEMA is a federal response to flooding. Insurance companies manage the program, but the money is federal. So you might have a flood insurance policy, probably not here in California. I'm from Houston. I carried flood insurance on my home. Floods a lot there. So the FEMA, the flood insurance is federal money, but I'm not coming up with the word, but the insurance companies are the ones that are handling it, because insurance companies are set up to process claims and pay out claims. Okay, so what can you do? You can look at your insurance policies. You can look at and keep good records right now. By all means, if you know you have a claim right now, get notice into your insurance broker. If you aren't sure whether you have a claim, contact your broker, contact our firm. We can look and see whether you have coverage or not, and what triggers that coverage, whether you have to have that physical damage, whether you have to have, or whether you have a virus exclusion. I mean, you can look at your policy and find those things. I know they're a headache to look at. But if you know that you have losses, if you know that you have claims, document them. Don't wait until down the road. Do it now while it's fresh. I'm losing so much a day. I'm paying my payroll, but I don't have any business income coming in. We're losing income this much a day. We're operational. You're a restaurant. You're doing takeout, but you're cleaning. more than ever before. Or say you had to rent, your business had to rent another building. You had a contamination at your site and you had to rent another building. That might be covered as an extra expense under your business policy. Document these things. If you need help, a local accountant can help. Or if you don't have a number cruncher at your business, hire someone to help you itemize and get all of this information together so that you can promptly make a claim against your insurance. So this is a slide with links to other helpful resources. I don't know if these will be live or if you'll get a PDF of this, but all of these sites have information. And then that's just me. So Brooke, did we have any questions come in while I was yakking?
Yes, we do have one. And it is, in response to Commissioner Laura's orders, do insurance consumers need to take action to get financial relief, or is the burden on insurers to execute?
That's a great question. The way I read these orders is they're directed at the insurance companies and they have to take action. So for example, on this, find the one, premium refunds. It says that Laura hereby orders insurers to make an initial premium refund for the months of March and April to all adversely impacted California policyholders in the following lines of insurance, and I read those off to you, as quickly as practicable, but in any event, no later than 120 days after the date of this bulletin. And then it goes further. The insurers have to report to the insurance commissioner within 60 days of the date of the bulletin. The bulletin's dated April 13th. They have to hereby orders every insurer writing any of those lines of insurance in California to report to the Department of Insurance within 60 days of the day of this bulletin, all actions taken and all contemplated future actions to refund premium in response to or consistent with this bulletin. So it should be happening automatically. Let's say some of it is, let me find this one. Here's one: requirement to accept, forward, acknowledge, and fairly investigate all business interruption insurance claims caused by COVID-19. This is directed to all admitted and non-admitted insurance companies writing insurance in the state of California. It says that the department has received numerous complaints from businesses, public officials, and other stakeholders asserting that certain insurers, agents, brokers, and insurance company representatives are attempting to dissuade policyholders from filing a notice of claim under their business interruption coverage, or refusing to open and investigate these claims upon receipt of a notice of claim. So he directs them to stop, basically. But all of these are under the, well, if you go to the California Insurance Commissioner, this frequently asked questions link, you can just Google up California Insurance Commissioner press releases, and all of these are there. And I'm sure that you can file a complaint against an insurance company. You can refer if you get such a flack from your insurance company, you can refer to this bulletin and say, insurance commissioner says, stop it. But again, to answer the question, the onus is on the insurance companies to comply. You shouldn't have to do anything other than be proactive and know your rights.
Okay, thank you. Looks like you were very thorough, because that was the only question we've had so far.
Okay, somebody else come up with a question. So Doug Critchfield has raised his hand. I can see that much.
Hey Doug, do you want to add your question in the chat box or in the Q&A box? Let's see, I'm not sure if he knows how. Let's see. Hey Doug, if you want to go ahead and ask.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, Melanie, that was a great presentation. It was very thorough and helpful to both the, I would guess, the insurance agents and brokers as well as their policy holders.
Good.
Is it meant to be shared?
Sure, we're going to share this presentation. It's going to go out to all of you who signed up.
Okay, I might like to share it with some of my associates, if that's okay.
Doug, are you in the insurance business?
Yes.
Are you a broker here in town?
Yes, we are.
Good, good.
Yep.
Happy to share.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you.
Brooke, I think maybe there something else popped up on my screen. I'm used to doing Zoom calls, but I'm used to seeing everybody, and all I can see right now is my presentation. So
Yes, we do have another question. It's if you've already filed a claim and it was denied, is it worth the time and effort to file an appeal?
the old answer, it depends. How big is your claim? And yes, probably. If it was worth filing and you have a definite loss, I mean, if the issue is you have a virus exclusion on your policy, that might be a problem. If you got denied because of direct physical loss, that's a little bit grayer area right now, because that's something that has been litigated in the past and will be litigated for a long time. Whether COVID-19 is satisfies that direct physical loss.
She does.
But I would rarely say, as a coverage attorney, I would rarely say stop on the first denial. I would write back, have your broker help you with being an advocate for you. You can have us look at it and say whether we think you have a good claim or not. And there's all sorts of things. You know, you can file a complaint with the insurance commissioner. There are a lot of ways to appeal denial.
Melanie, she does say, I do have a virus exclusion on the policy.
Okay. Well, it's good that you have your claim in, because in the event there is relief from virus exclusions, federal relief, or the legislature or regulatory says we're not going to enforce them, then you've made your claim, and hopefully that puts you in line to get some help. And like I said, even a virus exclusion, could it be argued that yes, I lost income because of virus exclusion, but I lost income because of this too. You know, there may be a way around it. Depends on the words of the exclusion. Some of them are a lot worse than the one that I showed in this presentation. I hope that helps.
She does say thank you. That helps. Well, it looks like those are all the questions we've had so far. I don't know if you have any closing comments.
I just want to thank you for your time here today, and I look forward to visiting your businesses when we all can again. And do look at your policies. Do keep records of your losses. And contact your broker or an accountant, and get some help if you need, and get those claims in, especially if you have a claims made policy. And if you have a claims made policy, it's going to say so in bold letters right there on the front page. This is a claims made policy, or this is a claims made and reported policy. So if you've got one and doesn't have a virus exclusion and you've got something that you might be able to report, I talked a lot about first party insurance because I know that that's what a lot of you are experiencing. But if someone is making a claim against you, an employee is making a claim, or a vendor, a third party, look for coverage. Look for where might I have that coverage. And if you do have a directors and officers liability policy, those have some pretty amazing broad coverage. Especially if you're a private company, they provide some pretty broad coverage. They're not just shareholder type suits. There are a lot of possible lines of coverage there. So if a third party is making a claim against you, get that reported to your insurance company, especially if it's claims made and has no virus exclusion, because those virus exclusions are coming on renewal, unfortunately.
Thank
So
you.
no other questions?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie. We appreciate all the information. And like you said earlier, I will be following up with an email to everyone who attended with your presentation and links and the video.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Brooke. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.